Claude just hit 92% accuracy on complex coding tasks. OpenAI's best model barely breaks 70%.
Wait, are you saying Claude is that much better at writing production code? So we're covering OpenAI's catch-up strategy, what they're building internally, and when we might see parity.
By minute 4, you'll know exactly which model to use for your codebase. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the AI Daily Podcast, today's news and a deep dive to help you stay ahead in AI.
Today, we're diving into inside OpenAI's race to catch up to Claude code.
Stick around to the end for today's headlines.
So let's talk about something that's been quietly reshaping the AI landscape over the past few months. OpenAI, the company that basically kicked off this entire generative AI revolution with ChatGPT, is now scrambling to catch up to Anthropic's Claude when it comes to coding capabilities. And this isn't just some minor feature gap. We're talking about a fundamental shift in who's leading the race for what might be the most lucrative application of AI in the enterprise space.
Wait, hold on. OpenAI is playing catch-up? They've got Microsoft's billions, they launched GPT-4, they have GitHub Copilot integration. How did they end up behind?
That's exactly the right question. And the answer tells us something profound about how quickly things move in this space. See, while OpenAI was focused on making ChatGPT better at general conversation, creative writing, and multimodal capabilities, Anthropic was laser-focused on making Claude exceptional at one thing that really matters to businesses: helping developers write better code faster.
So it's like the classic innovator's dilemma? OpenAI was protecting their existing market while Anthropic went after a specific niche?
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. When developers started comparing Claude 3.5 Sonnet to GPT-4 for coding tasks, they noticed something remarkable. Claude wasn't just marginally better, it was understanding context across entire code bases, catching subtle bugs and suggesting architectural improvements that even senior developers were missing.
But I've used GPT-4 for coding. It's pretty solid. What makes Claude that much better?
3 key differences. First, Claude's context window, we're talking 200,000 tokens compared to GPT-4's 128,000. That means Claude can hold an entire medium-sized code base in its memory while having a conversation about it. Second, the training approach. Anthropic specifically optimized for code comprehension and generation in ways that OpenAI initially didn't prioritize. And third, and this is crucial, Claude seems to understand software architecture patterns at a deeper level.
Can you give me a concrete example?
Sure. A developer I spoke with was refactoring a legacy Node.js application. With GPT-4, they'd get decent suggestions for individual functions. But when they switched to Claude, it identified that their entire authentication flow was vulnerable to timing attacks, suggested a complete architectural redesign using JWT tokens with proper refresh mechanisms, and then helped implement it step by step. It wasn't just fixing code, it was thinking like a senior architect.
That's actually kind of mind-blowing. So what's OpenAI doing about this?
Well, according to sources inside the company, they've essentially hit the panic button. They've pulled engineers from other projects, accelerated their training schedules, and are reportedly working on a coding-specific version of their models. But here's the thing. Anthropic has a 6-month head start, and in AI time, that's like being a generation ahead.
What does this mean for enterprises that have already invested heavily in OpenAI's ecosystem?
That's the trillion-dollar question. Companies that built their AI strategies around OpenAI's APIs are now looking at Claude and wondering if they backed the wrong horse. We're seeing some fascinating patterns. Enterprises keeping their ChatGPT licenses for general use, but quietly adopting Claude for their engineering teams. Coming up, we'll dig into exactly how this competitive dynamic is reshaping the entire AI landscape and what it means for the future of AI-assisted development. So here's what's really happening under the hood. OpenAI's scramble to catch up isn't just about tweaking some parameters or adding more training data. They're having to fundamentally rethink how their models understand and generate code. And the technical challenges are fascinating.
Break that down for me. What makes training an AI for coding so different from training it for general conversation?
Great question. When you're training for general conversation, ambiguity can actually be a feature. Human language is fuzzy, contextual, full of implied meaning. But code? Code has to be precise. One misplaced semicolon and your entire application crashes. So Anthropic built Claude with what they call constitutional AI, basically hard coding certain principles about code correctness, security, and best practices into the model's training process.
So it's not just pattern matching from GitHub repos.
No, and that's where things get really interesting. Both companies have access to similar training data, public code repositories, Stack Overflow, documentation, but Anthropic seems to have cracked something in how they structure that training. They're using techniques like chain of thought prompting during training, essentially teaching Claude to think through problems step by step like a human developer would.
But OpenAI has some of the best ML researchers in the world. Why couldn't they just do the same thing?
This is where organizational dynamics come into play. OpenAI has been focused on AGI, artificial general intelligence. They want models that can do everything. Anthropic, founded by former OpenAI researchers who left over safety concerns, took a different approach. They said, let's make AI that's really, really good at specific tasks that matter to businesses. And coding is the perfect example.
I'm seeing this play out in real benchmarks too, right?
Absolutely. On Human Eval, which tests Python coding ability, Claude 3.5 Sonnet scores 92.0% compared to GPT-4's 87.1%. But here's the kicker. On real-world coding tasks, the gap is even wider. There's this informal benchmark making rounds in the developer community called the refactor test. You give the AI a messy, working code base and ask it to improve it. Claude consistently identifies 40% more potential improvements, and its suggestions have an 85% acceptance rate compared to GPT-4's 71%.
Those are significant differences. What about specific languages or frameworks?
Claude shows particular strength in Python, JavaScript, and surprisingly, Rust. It seems to understand memory safety concepts in ways that GPT-4 sometimes misses. I've seen examples where Claude caught potential memory leaks in Rust code that experienced developers overlooked. For web frameworks, it's exceptional with React, Next.js, and Django. It understands not just syntax, but architectural patterns, performance implications, even SEO considerations for Next.js applications.
This sounds like it could fundamentally change how we develop software. Are we talking about replacing junior developers?
Not replacing, augmenting. What we're seeing is that Claude is making senior developers incredibly productive. One startup I know gave their entire engineering team Claude access. Their velocity increased by 47% in the first month. But here's the crucial part. The junior developers actually became more valuable because they could leverage Claude to learn faster and contribute more meaningful code.
What about code security? That's always been a concern with AI-generated code.
This is where the competition gets really interesting. Anthropic built security considerations into Claude's training from day one. It actively warns about SQL injection vulnerabilities, suggests parameterized queries, identifies potential XSS attacks in web code. OpenAI's models do this too, but developers report that Claude is more proactive about it. It's like having a security-focused senior developer looking over your shoulder.
So OpenAI isn't just playing catch-up on features, they're playing catch-up on fundamental architecture decisions.
Exactly. And here's what my sources inside OpenAI are telling me. They're not just trying to match Claude's current capabilities. They're working on something they're calling GPT code internally. It's a complete reimagining of how their models handle programming languages. They're experimenting with actually executing code during training, building in compiler-like understanding, even integrating with IDEs at a deeper level than current plugins allow.
That sounds ambitious. Timeline?
That's where things get murky. The pressure is intense. Every day that passes, more enterprises are standardizing on Claude for their development workflows. OpenAI knows they need something in market by Q1 2025, but rushing could mean releasing something that's still inferior. It's a classic speed versus quality dilemma. Stick around. We'll break down exactly what this means for your organization and how to navigate this shifting landscape. All right, so let's get practical here. If you're a CTO or engineering leader listening to this, you're probably wondering what you should actually do with this information. The market's shifting fast, and making the wrong choice could impact your team's productivity for years.
Yeah, because switching AI providers isn't like switching cloud providers. You've got prompt engineering, integrations, workflows.
Exactly. So here's my framework for thinking about this. First, don't panic and rip out everything. If you're already using OpenAI for non-coding tasks, customer service, content generation, data analysis, keep using it. It's still best in class for those use cases. But for your engineering teams, you need to at least pilot Claude.
How would you structure that pilot?
Start small. Pick one team, ideally one that's working on a greenfield project or a major refactor. Give them Claude access for a month. Track 3 metrics: code velocity, bug rates, and developer satisfaction. I've seen teams do this, and the results are typically clear within 2 weeks.
What about costs? These enterprise AI subscriptions aren't cheap.
Here's the thing. Claude's pricing is competitive with GPT-4, about $15 per million input tokens. But the real ROI comes from developer productivity. If Claude makes your developers even 20% more productive, it pays for itself in days, not months. One fintech startup I advise calculated that Claude was saving them $400,000 annually in developer time.
But what about the risk of OpenAI catching up? Don't want to switch twice.
This is where things get strategic. The smart play is to build abstraction layers. Don't hard code your applications to specific AI providers. Use tools like LangChain or build your own abstraction layer. That way, you can switch providers or even use multiple providers for different tasks without rewriting your entire stack.
Can you give me a specific example of how to implement that?
Sure. One pattern I'm seeing is companies building what they call an AI gateway. It's essentially a microservice that sits between your applications and AI providers. Your apps send requests to the gateway, which routes them to the appropriate AI model based on the task. Coding questions go to Claude, general queries to GPT-4, image generation to DALL-E or Midjourney. The gateway handles API keys, rate limiting, fallbacks, even A/B testing between providers.
That's clever. What about training and adoption?
This is crucial and often overlooked. Don't just throw AI tools at your developers. Run workshops. Show them specific use cases. I recommend the AI pair programming approach. Have developers work on real problems with AI assistants while someone experienced guides them. Focus on scenarios like debugging complex issues, refactoring legacy code, writing comprehensive tests, and architecting new features.
What should we watch for in the next 6 months?
3 things. First, OpenAI's response. If they announce a coding-specific model or major improvements to GPT-4's coding abilities, reassess. Second, watch what Microsoft does with GitHub Copilot. They might integrate Claude or build their own solution. Third, keep an eye on the dark horses. Google's Gemini, Amazon's Code Whisperer, even some of the open source models are getting surprisingly good.
This feels like the landscape could shift dramatically pretty quickly.
It will, but here's the thing. The fundamental value proposition won't change. AI that makes developers more productive will win. Right now, that's Claude for coding tasks. Tomorrow, it might be something else. The organizations that win will be the ones that stay flexible and focus on developer productivity metrics, not vendor loyalty.
Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, this competition between OpenAI and Anthropic, it's the best thing that could happen for developers. Competition drives innovation. In 6 months, we'll have AI coding assistants that make today's tools look primitive. The winners will be the developers who learn to leverage these tools effectively.
And the companies that empower their developers with the best tools, regardless of vendor.
Exactly. We're living through a fundamental shift in how software gets built. The question isn't whether AI will change development, it's whether you'll be leading that change or playing catch-up. Just like OpenAI is doing right now with Claude. The irony isn't lost on me. The company that started the AI revolution is now learning what it feels like to be disrupted. That's the speed of innovation in AI. Blink, and you're behind. Before we wrap up, let's catch up on this week's infrastructure news. There's a fascinating new development from OpenAI that could fundamentally change how we think about AI safety. They've just published research on improving instruction hierarchy in frontier language models, introducing something called the IH Challenge dataset.
Instruction hierarchy. That sounds pretty technical. What's the practical impact here?
It's about teaching AI systems to prioritize certain instructions over others, essentially creating a chain of command. This could prevent scenarios where malicious prompts override safety guidelines. The research shows promising results in making models more reliable and secure.
Speaking of new models, the local llama community on Reddit is buzzing about Nemotron 3 Super just dropping. The engagement numbers are through the roof.
Another Nemotron iteration already? What makes this one special?
While details are still emerging, the community reaction suggests significant improvements. The Super designation typically indicates major capability upgrades, possibly in reasoning or code generation.
Now, here's an interesting move. OpenAI is reportedly planning to integrate their Sora video generator directly into ChatGPT. According to discussions on Reddit, this might be an attempt to revive what some are calling a declining user base.
Declining user base. That's a bold claim, though I can see how adding video generation could make ChatGPT more competitive with other platforms.
Exactly. It's about creating an all-in-one creative suite rather than just text generation.
Speaking of misconceptions, Martin Alderson just published a great piece debunking claims that Anthropic spends $5,000 per Claude code user.
$5,000? That seemed absurdly high when I first heard it.
Right. Alderson breaks down the actual cost structure and shows how these inflated numbers likely came from misunderstanding resource allocation and usage patterns.
Adobe's making waves too. They're launching an AI assistant for Photoshop in beta, available on both web and mobile. Plus, they're adding new AI features to Firefly, including generative fill, remove, and expand capabilities.
This feels like Adobe's response to all the AI-powered design tools popping up. They're integrating AI directly into their flagship product.
Let's talk software releases. Mistral AI just dropped version 2.0.0 of their Python client, and this is a big one with breaking changes.
Breaking changes always make developers nervous. What's changing?
They've restructured everything as a namespace package. All imports now move from Mistral AI to mistraLAI.client, and they've unified their Azure and GCP SDKs under the same namespace. It's cleaner architecture, but requires code updates.
And Crew AI released version 1.10.2 Alpha 1 with some interesting features. They've added tool search functionality that dynamically injects appropriate tools during execution, saving tokens in the process.
That's clever. So instead of loading all tools up front, it figures out what's needed on the fly.
Exactly. They've also fixed several bugs, including issues with concurrent multiprocess execution and parallel tool calls. Plus, they've added more Brave search tools to the mix.
That wraps up today's news. That's our show for today.
If you found this valuable, please subscribe and share with a friend who'd appreciate it.
Drop us a comment with your thoughts on today's topic.
Links to everything we discussed are in the show notes.
Until next time.